US President Donald Trump met with President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine and other European leaders at the White House Monday. It was a cordial but inconclusive meeting on how to end the war in Ukraine. Much of the meeting focused on what security guarantees the European countries and the United States would provide to Ukraine if Zelensky agreed to a deal to end the war. Trump also spoke with President Vladimir Putin of Russia to begin setting up a possible direct meeting between Zelensky and Putin. Though it was not clear at the end of the meetings on Monday when or even whether such a session would come about between Putin and Zelensky. 3 days after Trump gave Putin literally a red carpet welcome at their meeting in Alaska, he presided over a discussion with America's traditional allies from Europe, which included the leaders of 7 major European countries, including Britain, France, and Germany, as well as NATO and EU. All of them rushed to Washington to ensure that Ukraine is not strong-armed into a deal that it doesn't want to accept.
We're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
Some differences broke out, though. Chancellor Friedrich Merz of Germany argued for a ceasefire to be put in place before any further negotiations with Russia. But he was gently rebuffed by Trump. And President Emmanuel Macron of France suggested that he was skeptical that Putin was interested in dealing in good faith at all. He said that he did not think that Putin wanted peace. But the good news is that there were no blow-ups, the kind of which that we saw in a previous visit by Zelensky to the White House back in February. All the participants in this week's meetings appear to agree to a plan to arrange direct talks between Russia and Ukraine while other issues are being worked out. But the precise nature of the security guarantees for Ukraine and whether or not Ukraine will have to give up territory, how much territory it will have to give up, all of that was not publicly discussed. European leaders pressed Trump to provide what they call a security guarantee that's similar to NATO's Article 5. As per NATO's Article 5, an attack on Ukraine would be considered an attack on all NATO countries. But Trump was non-committal on that. Instead, he simply said that America will also be involved in some form of security backstop for Ukraine.
There'll be a lot of help. When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
Trump continued to portray Putin as genuinely interested in finding a way to end the war. At one point of time, Trump broke off the session with European leaders in the East Room of the White House, and then he telephoned the Russian leader. That telephone call lasted for about 40 minutes before Trump returned to the European leaders and Zelensky and briefed them about his conversation with the Russian president. Trump later said in a social media post that he had called Putin to begin arranging a meeting between Zelensky and the Russian president first. That, he said, would then be followed by another meeting which will be a trilateral between the leaders of Russia, Ukraine, and the United States. But it is not clear when and if such a meeting will happen at all. Putin does not consider Zelensky as an equal. He does not even consider Zelensky to have been elected legitimately. So even if it does happen, this meeting, the bilateral and then subsequently the trilateral, it seems unlikely that this meeting will happen at the level of the presidents. It is more likely to happen at the level of senior advisors or possibly even foreign ministers. Trump has said that he does not want to provide more aid, particularly military aid to Ukraine, but that he's willing to sell arms to the Ukrainians to fend off Russia. Zelensky expressed particular interest in acquiring more Patriot air defense systems to help minimize the damage from Russian missile attacks. In fact, the Financial Times was reporting that Zelensky had proposed to buy up to $100 billion of American weapons, which will then be paid for by Europe. Also, America will buy from Ukraine up to $50 billion worth of drones made by Ukraine. When asked what kind of security guarantees he wants, Zelensky said everything.
What security guarantees do you need from President Trump to be able to make a deal? Is it American troops, intelligence, equipment? What is it?
Everything. And really, it includes 2 parts. First, strong Ukrainian army. That's what I began to discuss with your colleagues. and it's a lot about weapon and then people and training missions and intelligence. And second, we will discuss with our partners. It depends on the big countries, on the United States, on a lot of our friends.
Much of the discussion centered on how to put in place effective security guarantees for Ukraine to end the war. On the other hand, Trump pushed for a trilateral meeting with Zelensky, Putin, and himself, but there were very few tangible signs of progress that was made in the meetings or any specific details that were shared at the end of it. There was no mention whatsoever of any concessions of territory which Ukraine will have to give up to end the war. But it was clear in the run-up to the meeting that Ukraine will have to give up nearly almost all of the Donbas region in the east. It will also have to forget about Crimea, which Russia had annexed in 2014. There was no mention either of ceasefire, which Trump had insisted on before the meeting with Putin in Alaska. He seems to have now shifted that position closer to Russia's position, which is in favor of a larger peace agreement and not a ceasefire. But there were frequent discussions on security guarantees to make sure that Russia does not invade again. America and Europe would possibly assemble a force, a military force that's drawn from an international coalition of the willing. That force would be stationed in Ukraine after a peace agreement between Kiev and Moscow, but no one has quite detailed publicly what that force would look like. One concept is a full-blown peacekeeping force that would supplement the Ukrainian military. It would be put in place just for defensive purposes, but the idea would be to deter Russia from attacking again, particularly if there are foreign soldiers from NATO countries who are stationed in Ukraine. The problem is that for that force, that military force, to be some kind of a credible deterrent to stop Putin from attacking again, it would take tens of thousands of troops. But that is something no one is willing to commit to. No one wants to put boots on the ground, even as America and Europe have been badly burned in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.